What's up, everyone? It's your girl Shay here, and I'm back here with another discussion for you guys. I know this video comes out on Wednesday, which is usually episodes of Nerd News, but when I'm recording this, I'm about to go on vacation, which means I cannot record another episode of Nerd News, so I figured why not do a discussion. So I decided to do a discussion about timing in anime, and I don't mean timing such as the sequence of episodes or how they time certain stuff out. No, I mean timing as in a time or place where a particular anime comes out and whether or not it's successful based off of this crazy fortunate events or unfortunate events that this anime seems to happen to. And what I mean by this is like, have you ever seen a movie or TV show and people say it was ahead of its time and it doesn't do very well because the material that's within it just doesn't quite fit with what's going on in the current time and space, but then later on another show or movie comes out that's very similar to one that came out years before and it just blows up and it's just everything and everyone clearly loves it and it's everywhere? That's the kind of timing that I mean. And the reason why I chose this topic to talk about is because last month I did a podcast talking about unpopular opinions with Drac and DJM, and one topic that seemed to come up a lot was timing. And two shows in particular that we talked about was both Dragon Ball Z and Sailor Moon, because we felt that they actually greatly were affected by this timing rule, which was that both of these shows came out during a time where there wasn't any show out there like it and it blew up and was super big. But in reality, if this show would have came out years later, it probably wouldn't be as big. Now, looking at Dragon Ball Z came out in the 1980s, and during that time frame, at least in the United States, there weren't any shows on TV that were anything like Dragon Ball Z. So many people gravitated towards this show and really enjoyed it. The fights were cool, the powers were amazing, the characters were really funny, and it had a little bit of edginess, a little bit of adult material in it, so that as a kid, you feel like you were watching something so grown up. But in reality, if they would have showed Dragon Ball Z during the early 2000s or 2010s, so many of us probably wouldn't have enjoyed the show as much. And this is because there's sequences in it that just don't make sense. There's a lot of filler episodes. There's random episodes of just landscape. And the fights were just drawn out for way too long. And there were so many villains that it started to become very, kind of repetitive. And then a lot of people have their own issues regarding the characterization in the show, such as Goku being like this goody two-shoes kind of a character, and so many people love Vegeta because he's a villain, but then he kind of turned into a much more edgier character than Goku, and he became kind of a hero kind of a thing. But this is an example of a show that greatly benefited from the timing that it came out, because there was nothing like it at the time. So many people felt like it was new and it was different, and it wasn't like the regular cartoons that so many kids saw on TV. Also because they greatly basically kind of put it in the genre of kids television. So it was greatly marketed towards kids, not towards adults. So kids automatically loved it. And the other show I talked about or mentioned was Sailor Moon. And I mentioned Sailor Moon because, well, like I said, it also greatly benefited from this as well. Now, I loved Sailor Moon. Sailor Moon was one of the first anime I watched as a kid. I remember watching it when I was 6 years old, coming home from school every day, and I would watch it, and it would come on right before Gargoyles, and if it wasn't on yet when I got home from school, I would either watch Bananas in Pajamas, or I would watch 1010. So that's a little bit speaking towards my age there, since some of you guys have no idea what Bananas in Pajamas is, but it was such a good show. But anyway, talking about Sailor Moon. So of course, Sailor Moon was about a 14-year-old girl by the name of Serena, or Usagi if you watch the Japanese version. And pretty much she gets these powers and finds out that she's the Moon Princess, and her Sailor Scouts, whom she finds out are other girls that are around her city, they basically help her to fight crime from the Negaverse, and then later on other villains come upon them and they basically have to save the world all the time. She also has a love interest whose name is Darien, or if you're once again watching the Japanese version, his name is Momoru. And there, it was it was a very cool show. And as a girl growing up in the 90s, there were no like action shows that showed a female lead. And it was also had a great message about friendship and a group of friends, and you and your friends could, you know, pretend that all of you were them, because for some reason all of these characters were super relatable. And in my, you know, how I felt about it was that it gave me kind of unrealistic expectations of what I was going to be at 14, and Lord knows I was nothing like Sailor Moon. I was super awkward and super shy, kind of, and yeah, nothing like Serena or the Moon Princess that I hoped I would be. But Sailor Moon, since it came out in the early 90s, it benefited from the timing that it came out. It benefited by being a show that was about a super fighting female character that, while she was strong, she had her faults. So a lot of people, once again, related to Serena. And there wasn't any shows on at the time that showed this aspect, and a lot of shows that did have like action heroes or fights were greatly marketed towards boys. So for girls, we didn't have anything. So we all gravitated towards Sailor Moon. And I don't even know if there's any girls that grew up in the 90s that didn't somehow watch at least one episode of Sailor Moon, because I feel like almost every girl I meet watched it at some point in their lives. But Sailor Moon also, just like Dragon Ball Z though, had its issues. So if it was to come out in, once again, the early 2000s or 2010s, it probably wouldn't be as well received. People would have found Serena to be a crybaby. They would have hated the repeated aspect of the show, which was pretty much that you had a monster come out, they fight them, the monster goes away, they go on with their lives, so on and so forth, was literally how the show went on, and it was very repeated. And I feel like a lot of people would have been like, I'm kind of sick and tired of this show. It's not really all that great. And also the whole romance aspect, because Darien was like a college student and Serena was in like middle school / early high school. So people would have found that very, very weird and very strange. But since it was marketed towards kids and came out in the 90s, it didn't have these issues. So I feel like these two shows really represented what can happen when a show comes out at the right time and the right place, because it just blows up exponentially. Now, once again, these shows came out in the 90s, and in the 90s we obviously didn't have the technology like we do now to be able to stream anime when we want to and be able to watch so many different types of shows right on our television set. In the 90s, we had to take the anime that we could get. And in reality, Dragon Ball Z and Sailor Moon was what was big at the time, and they were what were on American television sets. Just like when kids grew up in the early 2000s, when anime was just starting to be put on the internet. Another show that I can kind of think of is Cowboy Bebop. And the reason why I want to talk about Cowboy Bebop is because Cowboy Bebop is like always called one of the greatest English dubs of anime of all time, and I have to agree it is a really good dub, but I had its issues with the anime. I didn't exactly enjoy it. A lot of people know about this, and a lot of people hated that I didn't really enjoy it as much, but it had problematic aspects. But that was because I was watching it like way later on and after a whole bunch of hype, so I had my own issues there. But if it was a show that probably would have came out later on and not when it did, which was like in the late 90s, I don't think it would have done as well as it actually did. And this was because, once again, it was timing. It was a really good show that was marketed for like a teenage adult kind of a crowd, and it was edgier than anything else that was on TV at the time. So it greatly benefited from timing. But what do you guys think? Do you guys think that a lot of anime shows benefit from this timing issue or this timing thing that kind of comes out? And can you think of any other shows that you feel like if they would have came out earlier or came out later, they probably would have done better or worse than they actually did? Feel free to comment down below, and also let me know your thoughts on the anime that I chose to actually talk about, and if you feel like you agree or disagree with me. Once again, it's okay if you decide to disagree with me. I enjoy seeing what you guys' thoughts are and what you guys' opinions are. Of course, please subscribe. I'll have a little subscribe thing here, animation or whatever. And of course, like always, please follow me on social media. I have Instagram, Twitter, and my blog as well. And those links will be down below. I'm probably somehow now at some point gonna add something up here to show you guys to follow me on my social media. But otherwise, that is my video. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and like I always tell you guys, stay positive and be nerdy. All right, you guys.